You're listening to week 4 of Monday Night Chats with Dazz. This is Dazzling One, and today is Monday, October 2nd. You've probably heard the news of the Las Vegas shooting at the Mandalay Bay at a country music festival, and I haven't had the most amount of time to look into this, but just from what I'm hearing, over 500 injured, 59 dead, and I see that some have been calling this a false flag or a hoax or a psyop. Either way, you have people coming out demanding that there is some type of action taken as far as gun control goes, and this never fails to happen. There's always a politicizing of tragedy, which is unfortunate, but then it begs the question, is this tragedy that's supposedly happening by chance really happening by chance, or was it set up? Some interesting things to keep in mind about this whole ordeal is that the shooter, Stephen Paddock, was 64 years old and had been at the Mandalay Bay Hotel since Thursday, the 28th, and apparently he used 6 guns to gun down those who were at the festival from across the street, and the only reason they say that he got caught was because of the smoke that set off the detectors. And for a while, his girlfriend was a suspect, Mary Lou Danley, but she was cleared because she was out of the country. But I just don't see how one man could do this alone. And I know there's the whole claim that he's ex-military, but I don't know if I buy that. It just seems like it has been a while since we've seen a mass shooting per se, and now we have the deadliest on the 2nd. Technically, it happened on the 1st of October, but I'm sure we're going to hear for weeks to come about how there needs to be something done about gun control, and it'll be interesting to see how President Trump handles this. Also, in Bali, they had a mass evacuation because they're saying that their volcanoes are going to erupt, which it'd be interesting to see if this happens. And I do know that, volcanoes can naturally erupt, but it begs the question, whether is this something that's naturally occurring, or is this something that's also caused by weather modification? Because we know in the month of September, it was hurricane season, but it set the record for the most intense hurricanes clustered together in one month. So you have that going on in Catalonia. They're trying to break free from Spain, and there's a lot of protests going on as well. And also, I read that there was a convention where there was a sex robot on display, and some of the men got so wild with the sex robot that they actually were tearing off parts of its fingers. And I had to refresh my chat, so I didn't see everyone that came in. But hi, Joey One Kenobi. Hi, Robert Deland. I see No Rush at False Flag. Hi, Lily Marie. And hi, No Rush. He says, any see a sea of bodies? Nope. And looks like that's it for chat. But it'll be interesting. I haven't had time to watch too many videos. Hi, Luis Sanchez. On this shooting, but I really don't think that this is something that just organically happened. Hi, Bridget Guerrera. But yes, there is a lot happening, but this shooting is going to be what they're going to be pushing for a while, because they've been trying to get legislation for gun control, and I see on Twitter right now everything that they're trending has to either do with the shooting or with gun control. But with the sex robot festival, Men got so wild there that they actually brutalized the sex robot. And I actually want to read an excerpt from the article about it because I just found it really interesting. All right, the creator of a sex robot says his doll was trashed by men at an electronics festival in Austria. It's a headline that probably elicits disgust or maybe a few chuckles, but the report is compelling because of the uncomfortable issues it surfaces. This is a class of technology that will soon be commonplace, and many aren't quite sure how to feel about it. The incident happened at the Arts Electronica Festival in Linz, Austria. Sergi Santos, an engineer from Barcelona, Spain, was showing off a robotic doll he calls Samantha. The interactive robot is reportedly programmed to respond to romance. But instead of offering some engaging conversation with a bit of spark, Santos says that the men at the festival treated Samantha like, well, an object. The people mounted Samantha's breast, her legs and arms. 2 fingers were broken. She was heavily soiled. He told Britain's Metro. People can be bad because they did not understand the technology and did not pay for it. They treated the doll like barbarians. And I'm going to leave it there, but it's interesting that you had this sex robot there and people were going wild. And some think that this could help people who have issues like pedophilia or who are sexual deviants not behave this way, while others think that this is only going to satiate their appetite. I see Robert Deland said, wow, really? And Bridget Guerrero said, that's awful. I'm scrolling up the chat because I was busy looking. I see Robert Deland said, yeah, maybe he was an MK Ultra victim. That could be the case too. They use a lot of MK Ultra victims when it comes to shootings. They can set them off. One interesting thing about this, like all of the mass shootings, is that he killed himself before he could talk. And that's a common theme with all of these mass shootings, is that they always kill themselves before they can speak. So if they were a Manchurian candidate, or they were working with somebody else, or they were part of a conspiracy, they're not going to be able to speak about it. All we're going to hear is that they were lone gunmen and they were mentally ill and they killed themselves before anybody could find anything else about it. And that's the other thing that comes with these mass shootings, is that often it's this talk about mental health and mental illness, and they're kind of setting it up so with these mass shootings, it's not just people like, for instance, radical Islamic terrorists, but it could be with mental health problems that one day snap and decide they just want to kill a bunch of people. So that narrative is being set up as well. Hi, Max of all. Hi, 15 Hearts, and I see he says, pray for Haiti and Africa. I'll remember to do so. I know that in general, Haiti and Africa go through a lot, and also, I haven't forgotten also prayers toward the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Mexico. There's just been a lot of natural disasters that have occurred, and they say it's climate change, but it just seems like it's beyond that. And I have a feeling that although hurricane season's over, we're probably going to see more of it. But there's definitely a lot of seismic activity going on, and then this whole North Korea situation is escalating as well. But I also feel like this shooting is going to be used for a while, like I said in the headlines, to also be a distraction from what else is going on. And when these types of things happen, it creates fear in a lot of everyday people's hearts, because Las Vegas is a huge tourist spot where people go to have a good time and have fun, and now people are going to be fearful when they go to Las Vegas. It's kind of like whenever there's school shootings, some people feel like schools aren't safe to send their children, or the Aurora shooting, movie theaters aren't safe to go to, and it just creates fear that whether they're going to a nightclub or to a movie theater or to a country music festival or concert, that there's always going to be this boogeyman type of gunman or terrorist. And I think it's not just meant to push for gun control, which is something they want to do because it would be easier to subdue a population who didn't have any weapons to defend themselves, but also it's used to elicit fear and it's just a lot of tragedy going on, and another tourist area affected by a tragedy. This time in the case of a shooting, but then of course there's Puerto Rico, which was another big place where people go to tour to visit. And with Puerto Rico, I believe tourism is one of their number one forms of economy. So it seems exactly like, in a sense, all of the places people go for vacations, like they can't escape tragedy or sadness. And there's just a lot of darkness going around this world. And I feel like a lot of this is by design, but it's just sad, though, that everyday people are being made to fear little things. And it's no wonder that so many people have anxiety, because if you just watch the news or follow these headlines and you don't think about it from an angle like it could be set up, then it's easy to get anxious or fearful if you don't understand what's going on. I see that No Rush said you can track the weather manipulation on the Mimic TPW radar December 19, 2016, September 1st, 2017. Interesting. And see, again, I'm not very surprised by this idea of weather modification, because I know the technology exists. They can't necessarily create storms out of scratch, I'd say, but they can definitely modify what's already there, and they can manipulate the weather that is going to happen regardless. I see Max Eval said they attack the heart of the matter, just as Ha-Satan always does. The adult Disneyland is Vegas for USA. So if they spread terror there, the rest will follow. That's true. Yeah, the more terror that we see play out, especially people who don't see this from a skeptical type of angle, it is going to create just more fear and even like paranoia. I see that Mr. BBB3333, YouTube and Dutch Chinese, I think he's recommending those channels. And then Jaguar Rye said hello. Hi, Jaguar Rye. And then I see No Russia's, it's microwave. Are you saying it's microwaves that they're using to manipulate the weather? Because there's a lot of conspiracy theories you could get into about microwave and electromagnetic technology that could be utilized, not just for like weather modification, but even for like electromagnetic radiation, the negative effects of it, and even like electronic harassment. Which is another big part of it. But it just seems that a lot of this is just causing nothing but panic and terror in the hearts of too many. And I really hate seeing everyday people become this way, because I remember a time when it did seem like this type of stuff was rare. And now it seems like it's happening at least every month. And it's just organically happening. And also, I wanted to share with you guys that the U.S. spies in Havana are hit by bizarre health attacks. And they're saying that Cuba possesses a sort of technology that's able to create like intense ringing in the ears and basically symptoms that cause them to become sick and makes them sick. And I find this interesting because this is the type of technology that many of us talk about as far as like electronic harassment or even ELF waves. And they're saying that Cuba has this technology and they were using this on U.S. spies, but we know that this country has that sort of technology that they could use on the general population. Of course, if you go around spouting this, they'll call you crazy, they'll call you paranoid, and there's the whole ordeal of gang stalking. But it's interesting how they'll leak out what sort of technology exists, but in the name of like either blaming another country or in the name of terrorism. Like whenever they talk about different drones that they create for combating terrorists, like insect drones or micro drones that they can use to spy on their enemies, which we know if they can use that against terrorists, they can also use it against regular people. Juan Diaz says, hello, do you have any good spiritual warfare prayers? As far as spiritual warfare prayers go, I pretty much I don't have any particular prayers I'd say that I use. However, I do own some books and they have a lot of prayers in them, and a lot of the authors of books that I recommend, like I said in another stream, was Derek Prince, and I can't remember the name of the author. His the name of the book that he wrote is like Dream Criminals, and he has a lot of others, but he has a lot of good prayers, and a lot of the information he shares on spiritual warfare and spiritual attacks are pretty useful. I see that Robert Land wrote, or in the name of safety. I think he's referring to what's going on with these terror attacks and shootings, I'm guessing. Sorry, guys, I'm like jumping topics, but yeah, they're going to keep doing this too in the name of safety because that's what they do. It's basically goes back to the Hegelian dialectic is create a problem, present a solution, and you keep society pretty much intact that way. And I see Bridget Guerrero said, I wish I knew churches with awake people. I know how you feel. I'm not a part of a church at the moment. I went to a bunch of churches in my local area, but none of them ever really felt right. But I do know some people who listen to the channel, who talk to me, and they're a part of churches, and it's good for them that they have that type of community to go back to. I see Juan Diaz said, I get heavily hit by witchcraft and black magic. I think they want to turn me into one of those Manchurian candidates. And that's the other interesting part that you bring that up, Juan Diaz, is that a lot of these MK Ultra Manchurian candidate, MK Ultra type of mind control and type of techniques that they use to control one's mind is a form of witchcraft because it's manipulation. And there are witches that have the ability, if someone doesn't have protection from Christ, to create this type of effect on someone. Like even zombie, that word comes from voodoo, and basically they were able to make their victim into a zombie. I see that Luis Sanchez said, I just got a book from John Eckhart, Prayers That Root Demons. It's pretty good. Thank you for sharing that with the chat. Yeah, spiritual warfare is a huge part of this as well. Even much of what they do with mind control, it goes back to spiritual matters. And it's interesting because the same government that's responsible for projects like MK Ultra in the 60s also funded years ago projects that dealt with things like clairvoyance or other types of psychic abilities as well for paranormal research. No Rush said half of our government is a satanic cult. Did you read the Podesta emails? I didn't read all of them. I watched videos on them, and I remember a lot of what came out about that had to do with Pizzagate, and I'm not shocked by any of it. I mean, people act like it's reaching to accuse those in power of being connected to secret societies that are dealing with Satanism and other ancient religions, but no, I'm not surprised by it at all. And Max of All said, I believe the power of the Psalms combined with believer's mind is a true sword to hang on to. That's very true. Knowing scripture, especially like reading books like Psalms, those are good prayers to pray. And then also faith matters as well. But it's more important than anything in these dark times, especially, regardless of what the news is reporting, whether it's fake news or it's real news, is to cleave tightly to Christ and to not lose sight of that, because it's easy to get caught up in all of this from a cynical angle and forget what's really important in this world. And I really feel sorry for people who don't have any faith to hold on to, because it just kind of seems like the world is getting darker and more hopeless if you don't have that type of faith to stand on. And It really matters in these times. And I think a lot of this too is just also meant to just kind of collect our energy and feed on our energy as well. I see that No Rush said, I haven't watched a TV in 2 years. Good job. I wish I could say the same. I see that Games Exposed. Oh, hi, Games Exposed. I really enjoy your videos. And I see you said, I believe in a well done kebab. Hi, Jarvis Kingston as well. I see that Max of all said north, east, west, south equals news. Always mistrust mainstream. Yes, there's a lot of bias and disinformation, a lot of the reporting of the mainstream news because, again, it's only owned by 6 main corporations and they're only going to protect their best interest. And, I believe like most of these shootings that most of them are set up and there's things that don't add up, but they're always going to protect that fact. And I don't know if you guys heard that they're coming down pretty hard on Google and Facebook at the moment. I know that Facebook, they're coming down hard on them because they claim that Facebook was involved in helping the Russians with ads to help Donald Trump get in. But now they're coming down harder on them too because they're saying that they've been allowed to peddle fake news on Facebook, and they're saying Google should have removed fake news from the search engines as well. So they're really trying to censor anything that's contradictory to what they're reporting as well. I see that Josh S. said there's a video on YouTube titled I Just Survived the Las Vegas Shooting by Lisa Fine, and around the 208 mark you can clearly hear 2 guns firing. I would post a link, but the chat won't let me. I wonder why. After the stream, can you do so? I don't know if there's like a feature in here that doesn't allow links to be posted. But that's interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, they keep on going with this he was all alone narrative, but to get as many people as I think at the moment when I last read, it was like 527 people, you think he wasn't acting alone. And then I see that Games Exposed wrote Facebook equals Fedbook. Yeah, Facebook pretty much is the CIA or FBI or government organization's way of keeping tabs on us. And people volunteer their information because they're going to put down where they work, where they go to school, who they're in a relationship with, their sexual orientation, and all the pictures of their life, their dog. And, they don't even have to collect information or data mine. It's all there in Facebook. I see Max of all said lonely shooter type, Oswald Kennedy type. Yeah. And every time it's a lone shooter, generally, they kill themselves before they can talk. No rush it. Hiking the Appalachian Trail helped me change my life, get in touch with our planet. It's great that you get out to exercise and hike. That's something that's important for all of us, is to step away from technology or even from just being inside and get outside, because exercise, nature, it is a remedy for that, all of that. I see that No Rush said Destroying the Illusion has a good video on all of this. Are you referring to the shooting? And again, we'll have to check it out. I wish this chat would let you guys post links in it. I didn't know that it wouldn't let anyone do so. Josh S. said, yes, most definitely. It's crazy. You can hear one gun firing in the background, then another firing somewhere close by the people. Yeah, I doubt that he was shooting 2 guns at once. There's probably more people, but again, this whole narrative that he killed himself before he can talk, so we can investigate further into, and that's what I love about the day and age we live in, is that we don't have to just take their word from it. There are people posting videos that are contradicting that on Twitter who are actually there, or on Facebook or YouTube or other forms of social media, so it's harder for the mainstream media to just lie blatantly to us. Games Exposed said, make us all moderators and we can post links. How do I make you guys moderators? I really am bad with technology here. Oh, let me see. I see a button that says manage moderators. Okay. It was Josh S that wanted to share the link. Let me see if I can make you a moderator real quick. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do two things at once. It's not letting me find you here. Here, let me see if I can. Yeah, I'm having trouble making you guys moderators. I see the function here. It says manage them. But when I go to type in different channel names, it doesn't bring anything up. Do you guys know of a faster way that I can make you guys moderators? I'm sorry for all the tech issues. I see Joey Wankanobi said, no, we are fine. And Gabe Sixwell said, no, don't make us moderators. And Josh S said, okay, I can post it after if you want. Yeah, that'll probably be good. I'll have to see before next week's show how I even go about making moderators, because whenever I went to type in any of you guys' names, it showed me different people altogether. Maybe I'm not using the function correctly. But yeah, it'd be good though if I could make a few of you guys moderators from time to time. But we're talking about the shooting and the possibility of two guns being shot at the same time. And see, I saw in another video, there was a guy, he was actually standing up with his arms out at the side like he was anticipating the gunshots. I mean, he didn't get gunned down, but it was interesting that he was doing that. Did he know that this was going to happen prior to the shootings? Was he just being goofy? I mean, to me, it seems like he knew exactly what was coming, and that's why he had his arms out like that. But there's just a lot about this that doesn't add up, and like I said, I'm glad that there's more people that are putting out info on Twitter, even though I hear that Twitter's taking down a lot of these videos from the shooting, so they're censoring, and then you have all of these mainstream outlets coming out down really hard on Facebook, Google, for peddling fake news, which is crazy, but not to be surprised, because in all honesty, I think that there are more people who don't trust the mainstream media than they like us to believe, but they want to keep the appearance that people trust them only. So if they try to flush out their competition, then they won't have to constantly defend themselves. I see Yvette Hatcher said, just got on. Hi, Yvette Hatcher. Yeah, it's, to me, everything going on at the moment's just, I feel like they're really going to push, but like I said, I'll be interested to see what happens when, how Trump responds. I don't think he's going to go with the whole gun control narrative, though. I think he'll stay true to going against that, but we're probably going to see more and more push. Like I saw something, I don't know if it's still trending now on Twitter. Let me see if I can go to Twitter at the moment. It was like text act something. Yeah, it's gone now.
But they were trying to get people to text this number to take action against the NRA and take a stand. And I see people again are pushing the idea that prayers and condolences aren't working and there needs to be some type of legislation put forward. But the question with what they're planning to do is like, are they trying to go for stricter background checks? And how are they going to go about these stricter background checks? Are they really just trying to confiscate everybody who has a gun, who is a civilian? I see now too that a lot of the Vegas shooting trends have kind of fallen off, and now people are talking about Tom Petty because he passed away today as well. And recently, I know I can't remember who else passed away. There was someone who passed away between him and Hugh Hefner. And I remember that was big news, like on the 28th as well, that Hugh Hefner had passed away. And I saw a lot of good videos done on what Hugh Hefner had done, like his legacy of kind of pushing dating culture. Because before him, and it wasn't, hookup culture really wasn't a thing. People were more interested in getting married, but between advancements in medicine that led to birth control and the Kinsey Institute that dealt with studies that a lot of them were skewed in favor of promiscuity, we saw a decay of morals in this country. And there was like two waves of the sexual revolution in the 20s and 60s, but yeah, he really helped spearhead that. And it's interesting that on Henry Mackay's website, if any of you know what the website I'm talking about, he has a whole um, few articles dedicated to talking about like the sexual revolution and the agenda that they pushed. And he talks about how some of the women who slept with Hugh Hefner said that like the only way that he was able to really like have sex with them was by watching like gay porn, which was pretty disturbing to think about. I see that Josh S said I just tried and YouTube still removed it. Yeah, I'm not surprised. They're probably going to keep that censored because it's contradictory to what the mainstream media is telling us. And again, they want to squash their competition, and videos don't lie and evidence doesn't lie, but if they won't allow us to show it, then they can say that it never happened. Alex Thomas said, I used to trust the conservative media, but I don't trust any media anymore because I at first had knowledge that a story was to fit a certain narrative. Yeah, I agree. I always say, like, I'm not conservative or liberal. I'm just independent and pretty apolitical, but there are things that I mean, like, I can find good in what each party could supposedly represent, but at the end of the day, I know that both political parties are just working toward the same goal, which isn't in the best interest of the people. And it's like the question of why are we only presented with two options every election cycle? And I see Games Exposed said, disturbing to see a very old man surrounded by 20 young, beautiful women. Yes, yes, Hugh Hefner, and you know, the whole also like sugar daddy, sugar baby culture as well. And he said, why need 20 in the first place? I would only like one person to really share my life with, not pay girls to have fake relationships with. WTF. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's all just a facade to give young guys this illusion that they can have all the women that they want as long as they're rich and they're charming. Even if, you know, like they're 60, you know, they can get all these beautiful women to themselves. And it just makes me wonder, like I said, when some of them are saying that he's not even able to have sex with them, he's just watching like gay porn. It's like, does having that much sex debase someone to the point where they start to like go in a different direction altogether? But yeah, hookup culture just it does destroy regular people on a day-to-day basis. People get soul ties, people have emotional issues. I believe you can only really form a one true bond with one person once you like are sexually involved with them. And I think it's hard if you continually just sleep with so many people to really have a real bond. At that point, you're just fragmented pieces of everyone you sleep with. And I see no rush said we no longer learn to love ourselves first. That's true. A lot of people just hooking up everywhere has a lot to do with lack of self love, and some people have trouble with abandonment issues too that lead to this. I see Games Exposed says when I watch porn, a lot became boring really fast. Yeah, that can happen to people who watch porn. Oh, Josh S managed to get the YouTube link up. Thank you for sharing. I'll have to copy this real quick and see. Darn it. I try to copy it and let me see if I can control C it again. Yep, I see it up now. I'll have to look at it later, but thank you for sharing it. But I see it's the video that you were talking about, though. I'm glad, though, that more people are putting, like, people that were actually there putting up their videos, and we're not just relying on some of the people that could easily be crisis actors. I mean, if 22,000 people were at that festival, and they could easily just insert people who weren't even there or people that were planted there to talk and give their side of the story, which is really the mainstream media's side of the story. I see Max Aval said porn is very destructive. Yeah, it is very destructive to the mind, and that's the thing is like you have a lot of supposed studies done by professionals that promote masturbation like as healthy, when in reality it's shown to have negative side effects, not just on like people's relationship and ability to bond, but also just like people's ability to last during sex with a person that they really want to be with. It's crazy too because porn for some people can really be addictive, but it also can be like a rabbit hole into like darker stuff. Like some people start off with really basic porn and then they find themselves over in like shemale porn, or worse, some people find themselves getting into child pornography because perversion really has no appetite. I mean, has no end for its appetite. So people may start off one way, but it's like they want more and more. Some people, pornography isn't their struggle. Games Exposed said tentacle rape. Yeah, there's some really weird stuff when it comes to what people can watch in pornography, like bestiality too. And there was a YouTube channel by a woman, I don't remember the name of it, but she was like, apparently she made some like pornography video and put it on a porn website of her having sex with her dog, which is disgusting. Like I could never imagine doing that to an animal. And she like has YouTube videos talking about how like she has a really healthy sex life with her pet, and it's just disturbing. And it's like
the fact she's able to like have a YouTube channel and talk about it in such detail is just disgusting to me. Like children could be watching that, but it's just like the sickness of people like that. But you have people that are able to marry like animals in some countries. I mean, the things people can do, it's just crazy. Max Laval said, all porn companies have satanic names, and that is not a coincidence. The actors and actresses have potions and throw hexes in the sets. Yes, I'm not surprised. The porn business, is another way in which people can form soul ties. Like people don't look at it that way because they're not having sex with those porn stars themselves, but it's like masturbation. It's another way to sexually debase yourself, and spirits will participate on behalf of the absent person when a person masturbates. I see no rush yet. Florida state of emergency due to Puerto Rico influx. Oh, so there must be. I'm not aware of that. So, is Florida having to accept a bunch of Puerto Ricans that are coming over because of Hurricane Maria? And Games Exposed says it's cool you read all my crazy comments. I can get you to say interesting things. Yeah, I try to read you guys' comments. I'm sorry for those of you who I skipped comments. Sometimes I'm not sure if you're replying to each other, and in that case, I will let you guys talk to each other amongst yourselves. But you guys bring up a lot of interesting points, and sometimes I jump subjects, but still. But yeah, I wasn't aware of Florida accepting influx of Puerto Ricans. It's just one huge mess that we're going to continue to see more about because between them and the Virgin Islands, there's a lot of displaced people. Hootine Guadalupe said, loving the live show, Dazz. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I see Jaguar Rye said, I think I might need to rework my profile on the single site I'm on. I mentioned that I'm looking for a girl who's interested in dancing. Number 1, 2, volleyball. 3, discussion about Nephilim skulls. That's an interesting list of topics. I mean, things together to be interested in. I don't think I've ever heard of that on a dating site. Like, I don't have me myself. I'm not a member of any dating website, but I've never heard of anyone putting down that they're interested in people that are interested in Nephilim skulls. But that's an interesting compilation of things to put down. But yeah, I'm just like on so many different topics to reply to. But it'd be interesting to see how they go about fixing Puerto Rico and getting it back because apparently Puerto Rico was already in a massive debt hole and it was worse than the poorest state in the United States. So some have argued about Puerto Rico becoming like the 51st state of the United States because right now it's just like a territory or commonwealth. But adding Puerto Rico would bring down the United States economy. And apparently, when they voted for a referendum of their own, only 8% of people in Puerto Rico actually agreed to it because it would be very difficult for them, especially now that they're crippled by this hurricane, to really function as a country. But yeah, what also brings me back to what's going on in Catalonia, just like with them trying to gain their independence from Spain at large, and just like all of the protests and violence between clashes and violence between the police and the protesters. Just we're seeing a lot of these like referendums and people wanting to exit either the EU or kind of like succeed from the country they're a part of. I remember people wanted to do Cal exit for California, exiting the United States. But it's crazy though when you look at it all. To me, it's a sign of the end, and just like we see that a lot of these borders and territories that we once knew are changing. But I also think it's a natural process too, because
part of history is countries forming, countries collapsing, and people breaking away, because if that weren't the case, we wouldn't have a United States, because the United States wouldn't have won its independence from Britain. And so I think we'll continue to see a lot of that. But I also think it's in preparation to all this chaos for the one world government, because some people say, well, we need a leader who's fair, who's able to unify all of these different little territories and countries as a whole. And that's when it'll be perfect to bring in a leader like the Antichrist. Some people say that maybe this will also open the door to like a fake alien invasion. They can have the aliens present a solution for us and all of the infighting going on amongst humanity as well. But it's interesting because in my globalization course that I'm in this semester, my teacher, she always talks about all these issues that are going on. And then she always says, wouldn't it be nice if we had just like one like global leader or one like government? And I always found that weird because it just makes me think of like the New World Order or one world government that we always talk about. Is going to come, and the Bible makes reference of. Sea Games exposed wrote the Federation of the Earth. Are you talking about what the aliens would create or what the one world government would be called? I'm thinking he's talking about the extraterrestrials, what they would create, which the extraterrestrials would just be fallen angels and demons setting up a government as a whole. But there are people out there who are so distressed with all the chaos going on. That's the other side of like all of these tragedies and like mass shootings and natural disasters, is if you break people's spirit and you constantly make them depressed, and then people want to break free from their tyrannical governments and people can't get along, and then you have some type of benevolent beings that drop from the sky, or a leader who's able to unify people. Even though I just wonder what kind of person the Antichrist would have to be to get everyone on one accord. Obviously, not everyone's going to be fooled by him, but there's going to be enough people that will be fooled by him. And I see Jaguar Rai said, do you think Revelation 16:13 is in regards to alien grace? And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. It could be. It is interesting that they use frogs. I never thought about frogs and great aliens resembling each other, though. But there are reptilians that technically frogs are amphibians, though. But can you elaborate on why you feel that Revelation 16:13 may refer to alien grays when it talks about the unclean spirits like frogs? But I found that interesting, though, and it brings me back to, I think it was last year, some people are talking about the magic trick that, I don't want to get his name wrong, just a second. Yeah, David Blaine did with like all of those celebrities, and he like spit out frogs, and people are talking about how he was like mimicking that whole false prophet thing, uh, sign in the Bible. And then I see Games Exposed said, what if the frogs are Pepe memes? Hey, that's a good point. I believe that, I want to say it's Understanding Conspiracy, or Paul Stops. He has like a few videos, or he has at least one video I know of, where he exposed like how Keck or Pepe the Frog was
linked to, well, Pepe was linked to Kek from ancient Egypt, and that had to do with idolatry, and it was deeper than that. But it's interesting that you brought up the idea of a frog being linked to Pepe. I never thought of it that way. I see that Michael P. said the Bible is very clear about the beast system in the world. It says not to worship those beings that are in the heavens, under the earth, or under the oceans. I agree with that. And it's interesting when you look at spiritual hierarchies, like of the demonic realm, or I should say, like Satan's kingdom. You have principalities like in the sky, like fallen angels. You have demons that walk the earth. You have marine spirits in the ocean. You have spirits that inhabit everywhere. Okay, I'm scrolling back up the chat. I see Jaguar Rye said, yes, I can. I actually did a message on this on my channel. I have to check it out and subscribe. I didn't know that you made videos, but I'll have to check it out. Juan Diaz said, I get a lot of succubus attacks because of porn I watched in the past. Yeah, pornography will attract succubus and incubus spirits, or sexual spirits, as they pretty much feed on our actions. Demons, they can't eat food like you or me, but they can feed on our energy and on our emotions, whether it's anger, frustration, fear, lust. That's how demons are fed. I see Josh S. said back then the closest thing that they could describe what an alien would look like to the natural world would be like a frog. It's an interesting point to make. I never thought about like the resemblance of a frog and an alien. Frogs have big eyes, like aliens have big eyes, I guess. And Jaguar Rai said, for example, all the animal greys seem to be the most similar to frogs. Of all the animals, greys seem to be the most similar to frogs. It's interesting you guys are bringing this up. Josh S. said cuck is getting thrown a lot around now, and apparently cuck was another way to pronounce kek back then. Interesting. You say that. I'm sorry, guys, like the chat. I'm scrolling up and it keeps going down on me. And Jaguar Rai said, consider frogs and greys both have big heads, big boogly wraparound eyes, a very small nose, or just two slits for a nose. They have tiny ears. Interesting. You're making me think about the anatomy of a frog better, and I'm thinking about a great alien. I can see it now that you're describing in more detail. With no lobes, skinny arms, skinny webbed fingers, fingertips with round on the end of them. Also, both alien greys and frogs have no visible distinguishable genitalia. They also both have permeable skin. The frog skin can exude certain toxic substances which help to keep the skin moist, protect it from the grasp of predators. And he said, sorry for writing so much. No, thank you for sharing that. That's interesting comparison between frogs and gray aliens. Now that you're saying it that way, I can kind of see the resemblance now that you talk about comparing them. At first, I was thinking of a frog and an alien. It wasn't clicking, but after you described it in that way, it makes more sense. Games Exposed said, I had many sexual dreams. Pray for me. I definitely will pray for you. Games Exposed. Penguin HE said, you have the voice of a 12-year-old boy. At least you have a good heart, though. Keep up the good work, college girl. Thanks. No, I've actually got that before, being compared to a 12-year-old and to a boy before. But yeah, just a fun fact. I think he's trolling, though. But when I was younger, people used to mistake me and my younger brother whenever I picked up the phone. They would think it was my younger brother talking, but it was actually me. I see Michael P. said, these are the beings that most religions worship, especially the ones of antiquity, and these are the spirits that are responsible for the spiritual attacks that we experience.
Are you referring to the gray aliens or to the fallen ones? Sorry, we're talking about so many different spirits. I'm thinking you're talking about grays. And I see Jaguar Rye said, also, grays supposedly can excrete foul substances through their skin, which can give them a foul odor, which is something people have testified of who have encountered them. Yes, I've heard lots of stories of people who've encountered these beings. They say they smell like sulfur, which is like a smell that is affiliated with demons, rotten meat, another smell affiliated with demons, and also sulfur, rotten eggs. So, yeah, rotten meat, disgusting, pretty much. Games exposes they turn the freaking frogs gay. Josh S. said, I was gonna say that wasn't very nice, and Michael P said all one and the same, and Michael P said different manifestations. Yes, spirits can take on many different manifestations. I do think there are some though that probably do look just more like gray aliens, while some probably look more like reptiles. Not to get into the whole reptilian conspiracy that everybody in a high office is a secret reptile shapeshifter, but there are some spirits that are more reptilian in appearance than others. And then there are some that have a more like androgynous kind of gray alien sort of appearance as well. Also, this is off topic, but since we're talking about like aliens, I just remembered in the one of the earlier chats we were comparing like the It clown to a demon, and I know it's been like a while since I've spoken about the It movie, but I read somewhere whenever I looked into facts about the movie or about the book series that it actually was from another planet, so he actually is an alien. Alan Van Riot, hi Alan Van Riot, he said, there are some, it's out there that definitely make me wonder about the reptilian scenario. And he says vids. I'm guessing he said there's some videos to make him wonder. Yeah, there are some strange videos of people's eyes that do look pretty reptilian in nature, but the question, I guess, is it that they're reptilian shapeshifters or are they possessed? Is the question. And Michael P. said fallen angels and demons, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Yeah, you definitely have fallen angels, which, for the most part, have bodies of their own, and demons that don't, so they have to take possession of another body. And he says two very different entities. They are what the Bible refers to as devils and demons. I agree. A lot of people who look into like demonology and stuff, they see demons and fallen angels as one and the same, and they're not. Games Exposed says Goblins, Alex Jones remix, really catchy song. Search on YouTube. I've never heard of it, but I'll have to look it up after the show. I would like screen share with you guys, but since I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, I don't want to like do something that completely messes everything up. So I'm gonna save like all of the going to the links till later. But hopefully, as the weeks progress, I'll become more tech savvy and be able to screen share videos with you guys. But yeah, devils and demons, for the most part, I'd agree. Devils, fallen angels, demons, demonic spirits. And Josh S. said, I was reading a book about demons, spiritual warfare, and it made good point on how God can enter you when you get saved and demons possess you or objects. Atoms are basically 99.999% empty space, so the theory is that it's what the demons fill up. Interesting. and enter people and objects. Yeah, demons can take um, homes and objects as well. Like even with like an amulet or talisman, pretty much people will carry their good luck, which in many cases is a spirit that lives within that object that serves them or helps them with them in that object. And then there's also cases of cursed objects that people carry around that they don't know that they have that create havoc in their life. And then Michael P. said the devils, fallen angels, are far more powerful. They are the shapeshifters. The Bible tells us that we have probably entertained angels and not even known it. Yes, I agree. Fallen angels are definitely more powerful than demons, and it's not the same protocol exactly that you would go about doing spiritual warfare against a fallen angel as you would a demon. Juan Diaz said, do you believe in faith alone or works-based salvation? I believe in faith alone. However, some people I feel like abuse, well, not necessarily faith, but they abuse like grace to the point where, people will think once saved, always saved, and then they'll go out and they'll sin and they'll figure because they're not saved by works that means that they can do whatever, and as long as they like believe that, in Christ, then that's fine. But at the same time, I think when you have like really true faith, it kind of gets you to a point where you sin less and it's less attractive to do such a thing. And with works based salvation, if it was all works based, many of us would be screwed. But I think that was definitely more Old Testament. But I do find it interesting too, that just like as a side note with works, because some people who are, I guess, irreligious, they're very huge humanitarians, or they like to do a lot of like volunteer work or social work. I don't think it's a bad thing for more like followers of Christ to get involved with like volunteering or helping out people in their community, because I feel like outside of church, really, you don't have. There are churches that do like outreach programs and different things, but I do think there should be more people in the body of Christ that maybe like reach out to people in need, in times of need. And that's something like I myself am trying to do more of as I kind of get older, is find ways to like volunteer or try to make a difference in regular people's lives who might be struggling in some way, whether it's like financially or like children who may not have a healthy situation growing up. I see that Joey One Kenobi said, good fruit is a product of the Holy Spirit, because we are working for our salvation, but because of the Holy Spirit. That's true. I agree with that. Good fruit is a product of the Holy Spirit working, not, I agree, it's not from good works or good deeds that we do. And that's the other thing too, when it comes to like people talk about I guess determining, I guess, who is living right or who is false. It's not necessarily good for us to go around just blatantly just like looking for people's faults or judging them, but at the same time, fruits that people produce says a lot about their walk with Christ as well. And I see that iPenguin HD said, do you believe people must be baptized to go to heaven? No, I don't believe that. And he says, with college fraternities, do you think frats are a gateway to Masonry? It is interesting how every major politician like Ben Carson, Rand Paul, Trump to JFK have been a part of a college fraternity. I do think that fraternities and even sororities are a gateway into, it's like, I think that there is a link between that and Freemasonry, but I don't think that everyone who joins a fraternity necessarily will become a Freemason or is a Freemason, but oftentimes when people join any form of like a fraternal order or social organization, it sets them up later in life for more opportunities because when they get to a certain point, if they're not a member, they are barred from certain um, opportunities that they might have if they were a member. So that's why people often will get involved for networking and for like upward mobility. I see Jaguar Rai said, thanks for the chat, Dazzling. I'm going to leave now. Feel free to watch the video on my channel called Evil Frog-like Spirits, Alien Deception, Rapture, Post-Meal Rebellion. Good night. Good night, Jaguar Rai. And I'll be sure to check out your video. And I see Joey One Kenobi said, is salvation a free ticket to do whatever we want? If not, then what are the consequences if we were to, let's say, deny Jesus Christ? Where is the line between genuine and faulty lukewarm faith? I wouldn't say salvation is a ticket to do whatever we want because for me at least, I don't believe in once saved, always saved. I know there are some Christians that do. And even I remember going to like a Bible study once, and the youth pastor believed in once saved, always saved, and he tried to convince me of it. But I believe people can basically walk away from faith. So if people are lukewarm, it's easy to walk away, and I think it's a slippery slope. Usually, when people commit to Christ and they're truly their heart's in it, when they sin, there will be some like tinge of guilt or this desire to repent. But as time goes on and the person continues to sin more and more, that lukewarmness and that small guilt, like, God forgive me, turns into them planning the next sin and how they're going to do it. And by then, there's no remorse anymore. And then I think it can create doubt or even shame to the point where someone does turn away or loses their salvation. But it's a slow kind of process, kind of like how when a person's desensitized to something in the beginning, at first they are disturbed by it, and then after a while, it doesn't bother them anymore. So I definitely think that salvation isn't a free ticket to do whatever we want. And Josh S. said, I don't know if this is biblical, but I'm pretty sure there are different levels in heaven, but don't take my word for it. I've heard that from different pastors that there's different levels of heaven, and they've used different scriptures to justify it. I'm not well read on those scriptures, but I have different levels of heaven. And then there's been different theories put forth on how those different levels work. Ron Say said, I looked at the seventh heaven earlier and think it's Talmudic. Interesting. Yeah, the Talmud is. I get this mixed up. The Talmud I know is what a lot of. There's a lot of, like, I guess, false doctrine that can come out of the Talmud often. I don't know if the Talmud, though, is part of the Zohar or the Kabbalah, but I have heard some pastors talk about it, but I don't know necessarily which scriptures they used. But I have believed that they have used some scriptures, but it's not to say, though, that the Talmud doesn't talk about something of that nature. Sorry, guys, I've been silent for like a few minutes. I was just like looking at a few things, but when it comes to the seven levels of heaven, I've heard like several things on levels, and I've heard like I'd say about 7 in the past, but I'm not too sure on that. And I see Paul 6 says the Book of Enoch explains the levels. I do. Now that you're mentioning it, I do believe in the Book of Enoch. It does. It's been like 4 years or so since I read it, so there's parts of it that I'm, especially when it got to like the luminaries and the heavens, it was pretty complex stuff. But yeah, when it comes to what is in heaven as far as levels and even like God's throne and the living creatures that sit around him, I've always found that interesting, even like living creatures, because it's really hard for me to fathom them with multiple heads and just how they don't look human, especially when reading the book of Revelation, I want to say it is. I just find it interesting. It really makes me wonder, like, when we get to heaven, just how it will all be. Because, we hear about the streets paved with gold, the gates, and even like the debate about the new that's going to be, how that's going to look as well. There's a lot of interesting sermons online about it. I see Ron said, "What do you think about baptism? I'm seriously thinking about getting it done soon." I know that Jesus did baptisms. No, well, he was baptized by John the Baptist, and I think baptisms are a good thing. I've never been officially baptized myself, but I would like to get baptized. But I do believe that baptisms are a good thing for believers. I just think it's important, though, that whoever baptizes us, that they're right with God, because I wouldn't want to be baptized by the wrong person. That's one reason I haven't been baptized yet. Similar to like when it comes to even like people that seek out deliverance, making sure that they're finding the right person to conduct the deliverance ministry on them as well. I see Joey One Kenobi said, "I want to get baptized in the Jordan River." Yeah, it would be cool though to get baptized somewhere like that, where we know that from the Bible people were baptized. I almost, at one of the last churches I went to, got baptized. I was going to get baptized at that church. I remember preparing to. And then I can't remember what happened, but something stopped me from getting baptized. And I'm glad I did in the end, because a lot of shady things came out later about that church. So I'm glad I didn't do it in the end. I see iPenguin HD said, "If you want to get baptized, which church would you join? I feel like all churches are corrupted." Not really sure to say which church would I join, because I really think it depends on the situation. I can agree with you, there's a lot of corruption within the church, but there are some good churches out there. I can't say that there's a particular church in mind that I could think of that I would trust to get baptized. I guess the important thing is doctrine. What kind of doctrine are they teaching? Even like the lifestyle of the minister and the congregation, because if the congregation and the minister's in sin, that's a big red flag as well. And I think a lot of it has to do again with, the fact that a lot of these churches receive tax exemption, which makes them have to obey whatever rules are put out for them as far as what they can and cannot teach. If they want to receive that tax exemption, and then you also have some pastors that are Freemasons, which doesn't help either. I see that Ronce said, I have no idea where to go. I think I'd rather do it in a river rather than in a Baptist church. I'm not joining any church, my friend. I'm not a big fan of churches, if I'm honest. And he said, you raise a good point, as some churches won't baptize you unless you are a member. Yeah, some churches won't. And there are churches that will baptize you even if you're not a member, but usually those churches are bigger churches that don't require membership. And Ronce said, I think that churches are just plain awful. I say avoid them. I mean, there are churches I definitely would avoid, but I do still think there are some good churches out there, but I think they're few and far between. At least around where I'm at, I haven't really found a good church. I've been to churches all over, but a lot of them, I mean, they're preaching the same things. It's not just prosperity. I mean, prosperity is one of the doctrines that a lot of these churches push, but then a lot of them too don't talk about things like deliverance and even what's going on in this world. Josh S said, I think it's stupid when churches push for you to become a member. Yeah, I've been a part of those churches that push for it. I think some of those churches, though, too, just want to grow their numbers as well. Um, Maybe they don't have a lot of people, because I remember the last church I went to, there wasn't a lot of people. It was a very small church at the time. I don't know how big it is now. I think it's grown a little bit, and they were constantly pushing for membership. Not only did they push for membership, they also wanted us all to serve like a position in the church. So they expected us not only to be a member, but to like do something to help out. And so I remember, I think I had to go through some kind of class to become a member of the church. And this was all back when I was like 16 years old or so. And I remember going through the class and becoming a member of the church and going through this little graduation, getting a little certificate that made me a member of the church. And then when it came time to serve and do my part, I chose to work with the sound. And at first I thought it would be fun, but then I remember like they wouldn't let me do almost anything. Like they said I was supposed to do something, but then they would always like find an excuse like, oh, this week we don't really need you to work on this. Or when I was back there, I was highly micromanaged to the point I didn't get to do anything. So between that and then I don't know, the members of the church just began to act pretty hostile there as well. A lot of churches I went to, it always ended with the members were hostile for some reason or another. So I don't know. That's just a few of my experiences in churches, but yeah, I know what you mean about like when churches push for members. I feel like it's because they're hurting for numbers. So it's kind of like the more members that their church has, the better it makes them look. And the more people they're able to claim as a part of their congregation. I see Ron said, if a church said to people, just come whenever you feel you need to, you are welcome all the time, but just come when you feel like, I would trust them way more. Yeah, I mean, there is a certain element in a lot of churches where like you'll kind of be ostracized if you're not a member of the church, and there is a lot of push for that sense of membership, but I agree. A lot of churches aren't really accepting of you just kind of coming and going when you feel like it. There's a lot of pressure on you, especially if you used to go to the church. Like, why haven't you come to church in a while? And I know some people say it's just them being concerned about you, but sometimes I think it's them being nosy. And I noticed whenever I would stop attending church, like the last church I went to, because my mom, uh, she started working at a certain place, she wasn't able to come to, like, I think Wednesday night services. They started, like, that's when they started acting a little more hostile, and even they start kind of talking about backsliding, like, kind of like guilt tripping us, like people who don't go to church, and then talking about like people who've backslidden. So I've seen that tactic used as well, kind of shame people who don't go to church as well. Let's see. Ron says that I despise churchianity. Christianity would be a lot better off without it. How are your studies going? Yeah, I agree. I don't like churchianity either, and my studies are going pretty good. Much better than last year, I can say. Last year I was a lot more stressed than this year, even though I will say that this last week for me was pretty stressful, but a lot of it had more to do with the fact that I just had more activities. Last Thursday, I had an etiquette dinner, and it actually happened to fall on my birthday, and so I was at school all day. And that day was just like, even though it was my birthday, it was not the greatest day of my life. Let's just say that. A lot of really weird things happened to me that day. But as far as studies go, I've been learning a lot of interesting things, and I don't know if I've told you guys this. I think I've said it in a few videos over a period of time. I started out when I transferred schools as a biology major. I didn't have any minor or secondary major, and I actually switched to a biology major and a sociology minor because I enjoyed sociology at the community college. And then as more time started to go by and I started to kind of lose interest in going to medical school, I actually declared a double major in biology and sociology. And then as I went through the courses, I realized I wanted to take more sociology courses and less biology courses. So I just ended up switching it all around and being a sociology major and biology minor, which is what I am now. But things have been going a lot better. I've been learning a lot of different things, and a lot of the stuff that I'm studying in class, it kind of goes with a lot of the stuff that I talk about on the channel, but it helps to have the biology background as well. But yeah, half the semester for me is over, so I'm like almost halfway done to my senior year of graduating. Joey One Kenobi said it was sad when my church raised money for a new building rather than going on mission trips as main priority. Yeah, it is terrible. Like, a lot of churches focus on like getting a bigger building to fit more members, and that's why they really want to hustle people for membership. I remember being a part of a church that said that somebody had a vision of their church buying up like the stadium of our local, I think it was football team, and they always talked about this vision. But like every church I ever went to always talked about a vision of expanding to like mega proportion. And I see that Ron said, I just started the last year of my course. I've had to battle through a lot of demonic oppression to get this far. No, I know what you mean. I'm glad you're on your last year of your course. And yeah, demonic oppression when you're trying to complete anything is the worst. But I'm glad that you're able to push through. Ron said, happy birthday. Didn't sound like you had much fun that day. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the greatest birthday that I ever had. There's just a lot of weird stuff happening. For one thing, I don't know what it is on campus, but there were a lot of people riding bikes that day, and they almost ran me over a few times. And then I almost got ran over by a skateboard, even though I was watching where I was going. And yeah, just a lot of other stressful things were happening that day. But yeah, thanks for the birthday wish. I see Josh S. said, I feel like if you attend a church regularly and have fellowship with the people around you, then you kind of already a member, but then again, I guess it's just a title position. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you go to church regularly, I would almost say you were a member, but a lot of churches I went to, they wanted you to complete like a workshop and graduate and get a certificate that made you an official member. Ron Say would say, I have no idea, but I would guess that you would be better off with the career options with a sociology rather than a biology degree. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the job market and degrees, it's kind of like a brutal truth for a lot of people. People talk about how STEM majors get all the jobs, but I would say like that would be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It really depends though on what area is STEM. Like if you're a engineering or technology major, your prospects of jobs are going to be greater than a science or mathematics major because without like a PhD or a master's degree, it's really difficult to find work with a biology major. Like a lot of them end up having to work for like a pharmaceutical company or in a lab, and I really hated labs. That's one reason why I switched to sociology. Sociology doesn't necessarily give you the most lucrative career options, but there are jobs you can take on that can work directly with people, which is something that I would like to do. Like I realized I definitely wanted to help people in some capacity, but I didn't think medicine really was the way I should go about doing it in the end. I see Juan Diaz said, I think this is definitely the last days apostasy in my that's why churchianity is in such a bad state. People don't believe in the gospel anymore or in the atoning power of the blood of Jesus. I agree, especially when it's in a church setting. You don't have a lot of people that are believing in the power of the blood of Jesus, which is terrible, especially people going to, like most of the people that I know are churchgoers, at least around me. A lot of them don't even believe in miracles or demons, and like I had professors who would like try to debunk miracles, but yet they were members of churches, which always baffle me. Whereas I believe in miracles, I believe in the spiritual wholeheartedly, but I'm not a member of a church at the moment. I see Jarvis Kingston said, "Did you ever get baptized?" No, I haven't ever been baptized. Ronse said, last year was awful for my studies. Anxiety got the better of me so badly that I couldn't even bring myself to attend classes. It was only by the grace of God that I still managed to pass the exam. I never did, my friend. I'm serious. Oh, okay, I see. He's replying to Jarvis Kingston. I know what you mean, Ronse, about I had that problem too, like last semester and the semester before, like when I was doing mainly my science courses. I don't know what it is about like labs that make me super nervous. I think it's because I'm fearful of like messing up, and you only have so much time to complete it that I would also get like anxiety. I like had lab anxiety, I had test anxiety, I had anticipatory anxiety, and it was really bad. And like the only thing that helped me was praying and trusting God. And I like had to look up a lot of prayers, and that's when I got into more spiritual warfare readings. But I agree, like if you're dealing with any form of anxiety or even depression, because I dealt with a little bit of that last year too, um, trusting God and prayer really helps. Juan Diaz said, I think it has to do with the Pope and his um, ecumenical movement and the United Nations one world religion that he is pushing. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I guess it's something that's early on. I Penguin HD said in college, the Jesuit professor talked about corruption in the Bible. For example, the Gospel of Jesus doesn't add up because the Gospel of Luke and Matthew trace different genealogies for Jesus. Also, the Bible makes it seem as if God is okay with slaves or multiple wives. LOL, to be honest, I don't think the Bible is the Word of God, but the inspired Word of God, there is some corruption in it. I don't think the Bible is perfect, but I think God has got the message across. I think the Bible shows us that God is with us, even though people aren't perfect and did unholy things. My question, however, is why do you think the banned books, such as the Book of Enoch of the Bible, are true? Well, for one thing, a lot of people argue that, since the Book of Enoch is non canonical, or a lot of the other books in the Apocrypha are, that you shouldn't really trust them. And I always say that, like, of course, I put the Bible before I'd put any non-canonized books, but it is referenced in the book of Jude as well as in Second Timothy, I believe. And when it comes to it being taken out, it was voted on by the Council of Trent, which was a group of men, not necessarily God himself. And I know there are people who will say, well, if it was the true word of God, why would he allow it to be taken out? But he does warn in the book of Revelation against changing what's in the Bible or adding to it. So, in a sense, it's also telling us that there would be people who would change or add to it as well, or take things out of it. I see Josh S. said there's also a good channel called Inspiring Philosophy who argues mostly from scientific logical ways to prove God and the Bible and also debates a bunch of atheists. Of course, there are some videos that I disagree with, but overall, he is really good. Thanks for sharing the channel. Yeah, I love channels and of people who actually will take the time to break the Bible down in a logical, scientific way, especially when it comes to taking on more atheist arguments, because not a lot of people in the body of Christ really, I guess, are really well versed in the scientific argument. I think a lot of it has to do with us just automatically rejecting the idea of Darwinism and evolution and the Big Bang Theory. So people don't study it out or understand it, whereas there are people who take the time out to look at these theories and break them down and see what parts of it may agree with the Bible or what parts of it have holes in the story that they're telling. And I know a lot of people too also reference Kent Hovind too when it comes to talking about creationism, which I've never looked into his videos. To be honest with you guys, although I'm a biology major, I haven't taken an evolution class, and I'm planning on taking one. Even though I'm a biology minor, I keep forgetting I'm no longer a biology major. I haven't taken a evolution course, but I'm planning on taking one my last semester of college next semester. So it'll be interesting to take it and look at it and understand, I guess, what the mainstream scientific argument about evolution is. But I myself, I believe, in creation. So it is interesting, though, when you look at it from a scientific and logical way, but also from a biblical perspective. I see that Ron said, I'm not a big fan of Kent Hovind at all. He is a disgusting person. He did bat for our team, though, and he did a good job, but I think he is a very poor person. Yeah, I heard there was some scandals with him in his marriage life, I think. I have no idea outside of that. I did not really follow his work, to be honest with you, or his personal life, but I know he's kind of controversial with some things that happen. iPing1 HD said, make sure you let people know Darwin's uncle and grandfather are known Masons, lol. I actually did not know they were Masons. But thank you, iPing1 HD, for the information. I do know that his family, though, all were wealthy and they were well-to-do, and it was expected of him to pretty much do something that would establish a name for himself, and that's when he wrote Origin of Species. And when I did the 23 video, basically on the 23 Enigma, I talked about how I think Origin of Species, the year it was published, it added up to 23 using numerology. Ronce said, yeah, this is hearsay, but he was supposed to have tried to pin a lot of the fraud on his wife in the court case. That's why she divorced him when he was convicted and imprisoned. Wow, that's pretty bad if he did such a thing. Yeah, I don't know, as far as his personal life and even much about him, but that's the thing is, at the end of the day, a lot of people who put out information, I mean, they're, I guess, people at the end of the day. So some people have their scandals and issues in their personal life that we may not always agree with. But I always think of it like this: we can learn from anybody as far as what to do or what not to do. So even people that I totally have almost no respect for or don't find them to be the greatest role model, I still can learn what not to do. And sometimes you'll find that sometimes people can still make some pretty valid points, even when they're not the most likable person otherwise. Paul Sticks said the cross reminds me of the Egyptian Ankh. Yeah, I know what you mean. It does look like it. I've heard that the reason why Jesus was nailed to a cross had to do with paganism because the people who were crucifying him believed in paganism, and so he got nailed to a pagan symbol. It wasn't just a random cross. And Christianity took that symbol and uses it, but really it's pagan in origin, which I wouldn't be surprised because you have a lot of syncretism going on with Christianity, and this is where you'll have a lot of atheists and critics of Christianity come out and say, well, Christianity, it took from the Egyptian religion, it stole from the Sumerians, it stole from this story, and so, and you had a lot of, when the Catholic Church was trying to convert pagans, they combined pagan festivals with Christian ideas, which created Christmas and Easter, and that's why there's a big phallus tree that people put in their living room. Or, you have Easter eggs being dyed, which all is pagan in origin, but a lot of people don't question it. They think it's Christian in nature. And ever since I learned about pagan, the pagan origins of the different holidays, I completely stopped celebrating them. I haven't celebrated a Christmas since 2013 or an Easter or any of these days. For me, it's kind of weird. It's October and I never celebrated Halloween because my parents wouldn't allow me to. But I forget what time of the year it is because I'm older now and I don't celebrate holidays. So I walk into stores and that's the only indication that it's Christmas season or Thanksgiving season is because I see decorations in the store that allow me to say, oh, Christmas is coming up or Halloween's coming up. But other than that, I don't really celebrate any of these holidays. IP1HD said, he said that a married man is poor slave worse than a Negro. I think if people knew he had crazy ideas and Masonic connections, they wouldn't believe in evolution anymore. As I have to agree with you, IP1HD, there would be people that wouldn't any longer believe in evolution, but then you're going to have your diehards that are going to say that they're going to believe in it because people talk about religious people bad for cleaving to their beliefs, but there's a lot of people in the science community that they're not going to let go of their beliefs in the forefathers of science, even when they find out about their controversial ties or past. I mean, look at a lot of the founding scientists were into the occult, and it's no secret they're into alchemy and into other forms of magic, but they'll just say that they lacked understanding, and they don't really see it as a way of discrediting them. Ronce said the way that Satanists always pervert the cross symbol with the double cross and the cross with the loop at the top makes me think that it's a genuine Christian symbol. Interesting. I mean, it is interesting you raise that point because even you think about Satanism, they like to invert the cross, and it is crazy when you think about it. And I see Ron Say said I was born again last
August and I didn't celebrate Christmas at all. I had to tell all of my family members not to get me presents. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like when you stop celebrating Christmas, people around you freak out. Especially like it's weird to try to tell my friends. In my case, it's a little easier because my mom and younger brother and sister are on the same page with me once I shared this information with them. But my dad, he was like, why aren't you celebrating Christmas? But at the same time, we were already, like, they were already like 16 when we stopped, and I was like 19. So he just kind of went with it and didn't ask any questions really. But my friends, they're always weirded out when I tell them I don't celebrate Christmas. Like, I always have to remind them. And they're always looking at me kind of weird, like, what do you mean you don't celebrate Christmas? Why not? And it kind of reminds me when I went to the last church that I told you guys about earlier, they had like a clip in their little like weekly announcements for the month. And the clip was making fun of people who called Easter a pagan holiday. Like, it was like making them look like fruitcakes pretty much. Like these neighbors who were like super religious and like fruitcakes because they were like saying how Easter was a pagan holiday. And it was at the time when I came across this information about it. And I was kind of like, really? Like, I don't see why those people should be considered fruitcakes for understanding the origins of Easter, but apparently the church thought it was funny. Josh S. said White Rabbit had some good videos on evolution. Microevolution doesn't equal macro. Interesting you bring that up, and I didn't know White Rabbit had videos on evolution, but thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I wish that more people would, in the body of Christ, would stop celebrating these types of holidays. But I also feel kind of bad when I like try to tell people about it because I feel like I'm judging them harshly and trying to take away their fun. I remember some people even told me, well, I have little kids in my household and I don't want to take the candy away from them, but I'm like, it's not as if you can't buy them candy other times of the year either. Ronce says if people ask you why not, then simply tell them that it isn't biblical. The same goes for Easter, funerals, etc. Beware of traditions of men. No, I agree with you. Yeah, people, when you tell them it's not biblical, they like the looks that you get from people. It's kind of funny, but you can tell that you offend some of them because they're like, how dare you tell me what I'm doing is not biblical, or you're just trying to judge me. But I will say though, to me it's crazy. Like you have churches even because Halloween is one of those holidays that I don't think even before I even understood about the pagan origins of many holidays that I would celebrate Halloween because obviously it's giving glory to darkness. But there are churches, and I've been to churches where they would have like a hell night where like they wanted to scare the hell out of you, or they'd have like can't remember the name of all of these like little Halloween parties they'd have, but they'd be on Halloween, and so basically we'd go trick or treating in the church, and people would dress up in costumes, and it would still pretty much be Halloween, which is what the church has been, which I really thought was kind of a cheap shot because we were still celebrating Halloween. But I remember a lot of that, and some of those people right after they came from that like church event, they still went out trick or treating for the night. So it's just interesting how like you have churches that really push not only just like Easter and Christmas, which is the time that some people only go to church. Like some only go to church on Easter or Christmas. And that's the only two holidays. But you also have churches celebrating Halloween for kids, which I think is like silly if you think about it. Josh S. said, does anybody know the origins of why people began decorating their houses with lights and other things for holidays like Christmas and Halloween? With Halloween, I don't really know about Christmas. I'm going to be honest with you with the origins of the lights on the house. Somebody already on my street has Halloween lights out. I saw them up, I think, on October 1st. But with Halloween, I remember like it's just like a really dark story with like I remember there was like I'm gonna get this story all backwards if I try to explain it, guys. There's a website. I'm trying to think of what it's called. I want to say it's on. I have to post a link when I get done with the stream.
it has like all the origins of every holiday and why like people do what they do for each holiday. And I'll leave it up after the stream is over, but if you're interested in knowing like why people do what they do on each holiday, I suggest you check it out. Just remind me if I forget to post it in like the next, I'd say 24 hours. And sometimes I can get sidetracked. Ronsei said Halloween's a bad one. I remember children running around with devil masks when I was younger. Even I had a devil fork. People do not appreciate how serious all of this really is. Yeah, it is really serious stuff though. Um, Lots of girls I know they take the opportunity to dress up like witches, which being a witch isn't a good thing, but they'll dress up like witches. The Grim Reaper out celebrating death. I mean, Halloween's. I know at least the costume part of Halloween goes back to trying to scare the spirits or like blend in with them. Josh S. said, I heard Halloween goes way back in time to like the Druids or something like that. Yeah, it does go back to them. And like I said, I'm getting it mixed up with other holidays. So that's why I don't want to just talk off the top of my head on it. But Ron Say said a Celtic celebration or something. Halloween is meant to be. Although ancient British people were not all Celts, that is false history. I feel like I skipped someone. Jarvish Kingston said, even though Christmas is pagan, aren't these Jewish holidays pagan too? Because Jewish people do Kabbalah and Judaism. Yeah, the thing about a lot of the Jewish holidays is they are in the Bible, but the way they are observed by modern Jews, which there's this whole debate on who are the true Jews, because Judaism is just a religion, it's not a race. And the ancient Hebrews of the Bible aren't necessarily the same people that profess to be Jews now, but a lot of like holidays now that are celebrated by modern Jews, the spin that they put on it does come from the Talmud and the Kabbalah. So there is a lot of ad libbing, like what is it? I think it's Purim, which comes from the Book of Esther, where it's celebrating God saving Israel from the persecution of Haman. And there's like this tradition that modern Jews will like dress up in costumes, have this kind of like costume party. None of that's really like biblical. Like if you literally just go off of what the Bible says to do for these holidays, I think you'll be fine if you want to do those. But as far as like adding all the extra things from the modern traditions, a lot of that does come from like the Kabbalah or the Talmud. Joey One Kenobi said, I think Jeremiah 10, 1 through 5 is speaking of Christmas trees as being heathen. Interesting. Alan Van Ride said, I know that the red and green lights for Xmas has to do with Celtic Druid traditions. I believe they would gather magic mushrooms. That's interesting. Ron Say said, well, it is obviously isn't a coincidence that Christmas is on the winter solstice. It's almost certainly related to that. Yes, it is. Yule season, I believe. I want to say is what they call it, because every single season on the Gregorian calendar is based off of a pagan holiday. That's why, like, even when it went to fall, there was Maybone. For a lot of Wiccans, they celebrate like the coming of fall. And Ronse said, the Christmas period is on. Sorry, did something weird to the chat. The Christmas period is on the winter solstice. I mean, not Christmas Day. Yeah, the Christmas period is on it. And Juan Diaz said, I have a feeling that October is going to be a bad month in terms of spiritual attack. That's something that we'll have to pray about. But yeah, October, I mean, it's a time when a lot of people, anyways, their minds are thinking about darkness and like death and demons and spirits because Halloween's coming up. All the horror films are being played on TV. So it's definitely a time to pray about. Already we see in the United States, at least, they kicked off the first day of October with a mass shooting. Whether you think this is a false flag or not, it's still eliciting a lot of fear and paranoia
for the general population. Jarvis Kingston said, "Great breakdown, thank you." Juan Diaz said, "I get hit really bad on all the satanic holidays." I know what you mean, me too sometimes. Like on some of these days, that's when I have experienced like sleep paralysis or just bad nightmares in general. And Alan Van Wright said, "This year is especially dark." I agree with you. This has been a pretty dark year, just like lots of tragedy, storms. A lot of people were talking about 2016 being a bad year because celebrities died. I say 2017, you've had a lot more just natural disasters and negative things happen to regular people. And Ronce said, "Here's one to surprise non Christians. If you want them to see how full of crap that churches are, tell them that nowhere in the Bible does it say that Jesus Christ being born on the 25th of December." Yes, I agree. It's like, I've heard before by some scholars he was born like in the fall, like end of September, around this period of like late September, early October. So I don't know, but it's interesting. I Penguin HD said astrologists believe that there are two black suns called Rahu and Ketu, and they are the causes of eclipse of the sun or moon. What's your viewpoint on this issue? I've never heard of this before. Um, it's an interesting take, though, especially after the solar eclipse came up. But I know there is the whole ordeal with like the black sun worship and like Saturn, and I mean the whole Saturn. When you get into the whole Saturn conspiracy theory altogether, it's like its own topic for another time. But I wouldn't be surprised. The black sun is definitely worshipped by people within the occult. Ron says it amazes me. It amazes people as they assume that it must say that for every Christian to celebrate it. Yeah, some people do believe like celebrating Christmas is like Christian tradition, and there's a war on Christmas, and real Christians celebrate Christmas, and I just kind of have to laugh at that. Josh S. said, "When I was much younger, I remember kids doing all sorts of mischievous things like egging cars and TPing houses on Halloween. Someone even melted plastic pumpkins that were left out on our porch. Nowadays, I don't see anything of that happening, at least not where I live." Yeah, I think kids now are a little more docile when it comes to celebrating these holidays and even just doing a lot of daring stuff. I think the day and age of like kids being adventurous is kind of slowly coming to an end just because kids are now more occupied with like phones, tablets, and other forms of technology. And they say that this next generation after the millennials, Generation Z, I think it cuts off in 95 because like I saw something where it was like if you're 22 or younger, then you're part of Generation Z, and I think it went all the way up to like 2004. But this younger generation who's like teenagers and kids now, and maybe even some people in their like early 20s, I think they're going to be a lot different than, you know, millennials who are like maybe in their mid 20s or 30s right now. So it'd be interesting to see what that all culminates to. And Ronce said, "What do you think about meat eating? Do you think that Jesus Christ ate animals? He certainly ate fish, but when it says meats in the Bible, that may not mean steak and chicken and what have you. The children are too busy on their computers now." Yes, I agree about the children being too busy on the computer. When it comes to eating meat, I'm going to admit I'm not vegan or vegetarian. I eat meat. I grew up in a meat eating household. I don't think it was the natural design, though, for us to eat animals in the Garden of Eden. However, I'm not sure as far as like Yeshua's diet goes. It doesn't really talk about, like you said, him eating anything but fish when it does talk about meat. And even it interests me in the book of Daniel how they went on a diet where they only ate vegetables and no meat. So I don't know exactly what to say about that at the moment, but I do find that interesting that you bring up that point.
there's like 5 minutes left of the stream, guys, and then I'm going to get ready to wind it down. But any more questions that you guys have or any other topics you want to address, just type them up really quick before 9 o'clock, I guess, for me here. And Ronse said, we certainly do not digest meat as well as we do other foods. Our bodies do not digest meat very well at all, actually. And Paul Stick says, the book of Leviticus explains the meats we can eat. No, I agree with you, Paul Sticks. It does explain which meats you can eat. And even though for some this might be extreme, at least when it comes to the meat I do eat, I try now to stay away from any meats that are considered unclean. I know that we no longer live under the law, but I have found, at least by avoiding certain fish and things like pork, I haven't been as sick as lately. But I do think that what you're saying is true, Ron, say that there are meats that for a lot of people, meat does not digest the same way. And Joey One Kenobi said, well, if you get cancer, the cure is veganism. And Ron Say says, if you want to go kosher and eat grasshoppers, to go for it. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of debates when it comes to diet, like what the right diet is. I mean, the New Testament does kind of let people off the hook to eat whatever they want to eat. I mean, I wouldn't say like human bodies or something like that, but for me at least, I stopped eating a lot of the unclean meat, and I found at least I've had benefits from that. Josh S. said, I think animals were classified differently, such as a whale today is a mammal. However, they would just say that as a fish back then. Interesting. And Ron Stay said grasshoppers and honey. I think it was. I do love honey. Yeah, honey is good. I don't know about grasshoppers, though. I don't think I could eat a grasshopper or any form of an insect. But yeah, when it comes to dieting in the Bible, though, at least we're not under the law anymore. But at least for me, like I said, I at the moment don't eat anything. Like I guess like I used to eat catfish. It was my favorite food. I gave up catfish. I gave up pork. I gave all of that up. Not because I like at first wanted to. Like I used to be like, well, I mean, the law's fulfilled, but I don't know. I felt something in my spirit pushing me away from it, and since I've done it, I haven't really had a problem since or missed it. I'm reading the last few chat comments, and let's see. Josh S said tarantula legs are pretty good. Joking. At first, I thought you were serious, and then you said joking. But yeah, I don't think even as a joke I could eat like tarantula legs. Well, guys, it's 8:59 and time is wound down. I've appreciated the like chatting with every one of you guys. You guys brought up a lot of interesting questions, everything from dietary laws to baptism and of course talking about the shooting. But thank you everyone for joining me in chat, and I look forward to chatting with you guys next week. And make sure to check out this Wednesday's video. But I guess I'll talk to you guys later, and God bless.